The space ecosystem is evolving in real time. As opportunities rise, challenges rise to meet them. Investors, innovators, and integrators must all grapple with tomorrow's hard problems today. How they respond will determine what's next up in space.
In this episode of Nexus, in-space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing could be paradigm-shifting technologies for the space industry. Designing and building satellites to be serviceable, refuelable, or evolvable could reduce cost and risk, increase flexibility, and help better understand and address failures after launch. ISAM is real today. How do we keep it real for tomorrow? More on ISAM as a potentially cosmic game changer here in the Nexus, presented by Aerospace. And you're in the Nexus, courtesy of the T-Minus Space Daily podcast. My name is Parker Wishik with the Aerospace Corporation. And today we're talking ISAM with an all-star panel from industry. We're joined by Joe Anderson, Vice President of Northrop Grumman Space Logistics, Vanessa Clark, former founder and CEO of Atomos, which was acquired earlier this year by Katalyst Space Technologies, where Vanessa is now Vice President of Program and Mission Management. Both are leaders within the industry consortium, the Consortium for Space Mobility and ISAM Capabilities, or COSMIC, of which Greg Richardson is the Executive Director and who's also joining us today. In full disclosure, Aerospace is the consortium management entity for COSMIC. Thank you all for joining us today. ISAM is real today. I think that it can only grow from here, and that seems to be the understanding of the space community. We do hear from buyers and investors. They're not quite sure about the value statement of certain capabilities, the size of the market, the viability of the market. We heard last week from the Government Accountability Office the same thing, and we're engaged in this kind of chicken and egg situation where we have the supply side ready and eager to provide and to invest in innovation, but they need a buyer base. So, Joe, real quick at the top, could you kind of characterize the ISAM market for us, please?
Well, to characterize the ISAM market, I think we got to look at both the supply side and the demand side. On the supply side, our company, Space Logistics, is still the only company delivering in-orbit services today. The only company with services actually in orbit. We've got 2 of our mission extension vehicles in orbit today that delivered in excess of 9 years of life extension to satellites in geo orbit. Our MEV-1 is now docked to its first client, provided 5 years of service, successfully undocked just a couple of months ago, and then proceeded on and redocked to its second client. So, showing that continuation of service and demand. Our MEV-2 docked about 4.5 years ago. It remains docked to its first client, and that client was so happy with the service, they've actually extended that for another 4 years beyond its termination next year. So showing great demand in that regard. We're also generating our next generation of service capability, our mission robotic vehicle, our mission extension pods. This mission robotic vehicle being done in partnership with DARPA will launch next year, and it really takes us to the next generation of in-orbit servicing with a lot more capabilities. Northrop Grumman also working today on delivering refueling for the Space Force, and that capability coming into play in 26 and 27. So a lot of supply side from our perspective on it. And really, this is the only supply that is available in the market today. So I'm unneeded life extension services today. That's really all that's available. Others are trying to get into it. They're coming, but they're going to be years down the road yet till it's really that marketable service. And the other piece is it only covers one small subset of ISAM. When we talk about ISAM, it's servicing, assembly, manufacturing. And so there's a broad spectrum of the technology readiness across that entire term. So we got to be careful as well when you talk about, capability demonstration for ISAM. it's such a broad spectrum. You got to be very careful on what portion of that spectrum we're talking about. On the demand side, I'm often asked, right, is there demand for ISAM? Yeah, I've been out building this business for over 15 years now for in-orbit servicing, in particular maneuver life extension. And I have to, yes, my perception talking with these customers over all that time is there is ample demand from our customers for these types of services. The issue is there's very limited supply. There's been no supply until our MEVs a few years ago, and now there's only those couple of servicers in orbit today. So I see it more of an issue of a lack of supply versus a lack of demand.
That undocking you referenced happened in April. Congratulations, phenomenal video. We're going to show that. Also in April timeframe, Vanessa, your company was acquired by Katalyst. Congratulations on that. You are the industry caucus chair for Cosmic. Alongside Space Logistics, more well-established companies, there is a constellation of earlier stage companies. How do you characterize the ISAM marketplace from your perspective as industry caucus chair of Cosmic?
Yeah, so very similar to what Joe said. Like there is a lot of pent-up demand, but there is really only one player in the market delivering services. So there is so much room for growth. But I really see that, like Joe said, that ISAM is very broad. There are discrete ISAM missions that can happen today, where satellite operators on orbit today don't just need those services. Like it makes sense for their business model to utilize those services, and they want to leverage them, but the supply isn't there. Then there's really what I see as next generation services. So ISAM is, it's really a movement. It's a collection of potential missions that we do, but it shifts the paradigm in the industry where we are no longer constrained by launch. We are no longer constrained by the inability to repair, upgrade, relocate spacecraft. So it has the potential to totally change how we do space missions. So ISAM that revolutionizes the industry, allows manufacturing assembly of systems on orbit, is what I really see as next generation stuff. So when we look at the marketplace today, there are a whole bunch of companies who are focused on the here and now, like what mission sets do customers want today, and there are lots of them. And then there are also companies that are looking further afield as to what comes next. Once we master the technologies and make this commonplace, once we overcome some of the barriers to entry to this sector, what should we be building? So where is the puck going and where should we be? So it's very exciting, but we are very much in stage one, which is do initial missions that have desperate customers today. But I'm excited for the future and the future growth as well, where we can really change how we do missions in space completely.
And Parker, if I could add another dimension there, is that demand that we're talking about, it's very price and risk elastic in nature, right? So the lower we can get our prices, the much greater that demand is going to be, similarly with risk.
Great point to come back to. Talking about the demand, the market involves a market of buyers as well as sellers. Greg, you are the executive director of Cosmic, which includes the government segment of the space sector, the academic sector as well. And, commercial for commercial is also, a B2B transaction is a use case for ISAM. From your vantage point, how would you define the community supporting ISAM, developing ISAM? Talk about how Cosmic, the community, has grown over time since it was established by NASA a couple of years ago.
Got it. Well, thanks, Parker. Cosmic is the nationwide consortium for ISAM, in space servicing, assembly, manufacturing. And as a nationwide consortium, we try to bring together government, industry, academia to talk about who's out there, what are they doing, where are their challenges they're facing, what are the challenges they're seeing in the road coming up. And then by combining all those perspectives, by combining forces, by working shoulder to shoulder on identifying problems and figuring out how to solve them, we can see where we as the US ISAM community need to go to make sure that these services become available, reliable, routine, safe, and effective. There's a whole spectrum of missions, the way that Joe and Vanessa just described it. Some of those missions are things that happen today with today's technology on today's spacecraft. I think continuing to invest in both technology maturation so that the type of missions that we can do expand into the future, as well as investing in on-orbit demonstration to provide heritage, to show that these are as safe, reliable, and effective as the operational users need them to be. Those are both areas where investment from the government side is needed. And that will create the number of players that Joe is talking about so that the supply matches the demand. It will create the new capabilities that Vanessa is talking about to try to expand what's possible in the future. But in order to do that, we've got to be able to come together as a community and see where there are problems and how do we solve them together.
So I want to quote again the GAO report here, which again says that ISAM is a potential paradigm changer in space. Development of ISAM technology faces challenges largely related to what experts call the chicken and egg problem. ISAM service providers are hesitant to develop technology into servicing products until there is a user base, i.e. buyers, and users, i.e. buyers, are hesitant to design and deploy satellites that can be serviced until those products are available. And available, i.e. means tested and proven with some of that heritage you just described. So we talk about the risk, we talk about the technology needing to be proven first. Joe and then Vanessa, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, so when I think about risk, there's really two key pieces to it, and Greg kind of pointed it out, right? There's the technology risk itself for the services we're providing. And looking at the types of services we're providing today in orbit, that technology has been around, that most of the technology we need there has been around for decades, and it's been performed dozens, if not hundreds of times. Rendezvous and docking is not new. Rendezvous and docking has been done since the 1960s. Right? This is not new technology. And what we've done with space logistics is we've taken that capability that Northrop Grumman has developed and used over the years and applying it in a new way. So for us, right, the second part of the risk, not just the technology, it's the heritage piece. My company is fortunate that, we're part of a business that has already matured that their capabilities of performing those technologies. Of course, it's a big challenge for other, startups that are just coming into the industry. They have a different hurdle, a different challenge to now also prove their heritage.
Agree. And Vanessa, we heard that from you at Cosmic Convergence in June in Los Angeles. You kind of foot stomping the need for test beds, need for more testing capacity. I know Greg supports this because we've talked about it recently and he'll build off of that. But Vanessa, what would you like to see to advance the industry from a testing and improving standpoint?
So I do think we need a nationally owned test asset on orbit for ISAM missions. So this doesn't have to be a dedicated system that we design, build, launch. This could be a US government satellite, so even a old NOAA satellite, one of their GOES systems that, that fleet is constantly being replenished. It could be semi-retired, and in its semi-retirement, it could be a target for rendezvous proximity operations and capture testing. And then in the future, we could expand that platform and capabilities, so add additional upgrades, interfaces, systems, so that it's really an on-orbit testbed that is very analogous to near-term targets for ISAM. Now, the reason I think we need this is not just for technology maturation. It's also to remove a lot of the barriers to entry. So for ISAM missions, a lot of the customers who want services today, they always ask the question, when you go demonstrate this mission on a different spacecraft before you come and do it on our operational asset? And so Northrop Grumman Space Logistics obviously worked with their customers through that. They managed to overcome this third-party demonstration requirement. But a lot of companies are saying hey, can you go rendezvous and capture something before you come and capture us? So that essentially removes this barrier to entry that isn't just technology demonstration. It is the risk posture of customers. But then also having that heritage will allow a lot of things to happen in parallel. So it will increase the insurability of not just the asset that's doing the rendezvous, but of the services themselves and the asset that's being subject to ISAM services. It's also a very good way to push the needle forward. So this test asset in itself could develop its own capabilities that not just for ISAM, but for potentially the primary mission objective could be augmented in the future. So I think there's a whole bunch of benefits here, but the reason why I'm recommending this is right now, the cost to not just get to orbit, but to demonstrate these technologies is effectively a barrier to entry. That right now, some of the larger players, certainly Northrop Grumman Space Logistics, is enjoying as a competitive advantage. I want us to all compete based on the quality of service that we provide and pricing, not who got there first and got over this huge hump, this activation energy to provide services first. So this is essentially lowering the activation energy for future ISAM missions. So riding on Northrop Space Logistics coattails, certainly, but allowing more people to come into the space so that we have a more vibrant ecosystem.
More people coming to space, more capabilities and space systems coming into space. Greg, I think this for you is the point.
Absolutely. One of the things that Cosmic has as our mission statement is making ISAM services and operations routine. That we want to get out of this language of technology demonstration and into this language of operations. The way to do that is to make sure that you've got sufficient heritage, that make sure you've got safe, reliable, and effective systems so that the operational users who want to buy services have confidence that that service will be there when it's needed, at the price that's needed, at acceptable risk to perform the services that allow them to make their spacecraft better, longer, and just continue to operate the way that they need to. Back at the Cosmic Kickoff, there was a big discussion about how do you get ISAM missions into space? How do you demonstrate that? And someone made a comment specifically about robotic arms and said, the best way to fly a robot arm in space is to have already flown a robot arm in space. Right? You need that heritage, and that convinces someone that it's possible and that you can do it. The same is true of ISAM missions. The best way to fly an ISAM mission is to show what's possible, show that you can do it safely, reliably, and effectively. If you do that, the world opens up. It's a lot easier to get approval to come and, as Vanessa said, fly up to that second satellite and that third and that fourth and continue to provide the kind of services that Joe has been talking about with MEV and that are planned for the future with the MRV. Getting that first set of heritage, as Vanessa said, getting over that activation energy is a critical first step to be able to provide more services than we provide today.
I want to home in on what may be the actual chicken and egg point, which is the lack of test opportunities and the lack of sustained investment. And these are both listed in this GAO report as rationales for the lack of demonstrated capability. So which comes first, the investment or the test opportunities, the opportunity to get flight heritage?
So I think that the financing side needs to be improved fast. A test isn't free. So it's not just, so early stage companies in particular, they have two types of capital that they can draw on right now. One is customer revenue, but customers want to see heritage already. They don't want to fund the development. So that's going to be in the future after we test. So companies like Katalyst are really reliant on venture capital investment. Now, that's only one small pool of money. I think we have an opportunity now to, particularly with things like the Office of Strategic Capital, particularly with a lot of the changes that are going on in the global financial markets. Like, why don't we diversify the financial mechanisms by which we can invest in technologies like this? Things such as program financing, not just underwriting government contracts, which quite a few lenders do today, but underwriting and capitalizing commercial contracts. What is a good form of a commercial ISAM contract that would allow a lender to provide the upfront capital for that mission? I think this is work that OSC and the government could be doing to make sure that America stays at the forefront. Because ultimately, venture capital comes in waves and hype cycles. And right now, we're right in that defense hype cycle. It is drifting to an AI hype cycle. And so I think that the ability to access the capital we need to push ISAM forward will be available now in the next 6 to 12 months. And they'll probably peter out as the next thing comes through. So I think if there are great companies that come through in a couple of years' time, they may not get the capital that they need to do the testing and demonstration in space that they need to do to realize these missions, unless we as a nation really try to change the lines of capital these companies can take on. So finance first, and then testing second. We want to get to a point where a lot of these companies have enough heritage that customers are willing to fund Delta development and fund those missions. So, it's going to be a national fight. And this is why I really am excited to participate with Cosmic and try to bring the consortium forward together to solve some of these problems as a group, because one company can't solve it alone.
At Convergence, we actually heard from investors and venture capital community. I thought that was actually one of the more compelling new aspects this year. And to your point, Vanessa, you're coming into these communities, or confers as well as Cosmic, to move the ISAM industry forward. Obviously different organizations, but you are bringing those investor pieces. You're coming in with companies like Joe's, which does have actual test beds on orbit, right? And Joe, maybe you could talk a little bit about how your capabilities can service test beds. But we're looking for an increased number and type of tests that can be done on orbit. And that's where the investment piece comes in, I think, that you're describing, Vanessa. Joe, talk a little bit about your capabilities on orbit.
Sure. So test beds are really, really crucial. I agree with that. And there are lots of different opportunities for test beds. One of them in the near future will be our mission robotic vehicle that we've been building in partnership with DARPA. It will be launching a year from now. It'll be in geo orbit the year after that. Unfortunately, very slow electric propulsion orbit raising. Takes it a little longer to get up to geo orbit. But once it's there, it's a great platform. It's a 13-year lifetime for us, and we'll have opportunities to utilize that robotic vehicle to demonstrate new servicing technologies, as well as help new companies get their heritage by delivering their tools, their capabilities to the MRV, and then we can demonstrate them, use them in geo orbit, and thereby help grow that heritage for those customers.
One of the things that I see in hearing all these different perspectives is that we have more in common. We have more things that we want to do together. And that's true whether you've got government demand, whether you've got industry supply, or even industry demand. That we've got things that we all know we need to do. And Vanessa talked about that in terms of on-orbit test beds and the ability to expand the number of providers that can operate through those test beds. Joe's offering one of those test beds. I think one of the challenges that we can address together is this idea that we need more systems that have flight heritage. And so that in having that, it provides U.S. systems what they need to continue to operate in a resilient, reliable, and robust way. Whether that test bed is something that is developed on the civil side, a defense side, a commercial side, that test bed is needed. And not just one, but a variety of test beds that are unique to different applications and operation modes. That if commercial develops that and offers that as a service, you can rent space on a test bed, you can perform operations with that. That's one mode of operations. Another is government says this is something that benefits all of us, and they decide to invest in something that can be opened to the entire community. Each of those are viable models, and I think as we continue to talk, we can figure out what's the path that makes the most sense. Is there just one path, or could we take more than one of these paths? Because we don't want just one single instance to be the center of the hourglass when everything has to flow into it. We want a variety of different capabilities. We want enough capacity to deal with that latent demand that all wants on-orbit demonstrations. All of those are goals that we're working together through Cosmic.
To close, to offer your main points, I'd like for you to build off a tagline. ISAM is real today. What's the next one-liner?
So ISAM is real today. We just need to reduce the activation energy for more companies to be on orbit and deliver these services.
ISAM is real today. We want to grow that market. To grow that market, I think we have to help our customers. It's an industry. We have to help our customers understand that there's a new capability that this is bringing to service and maintain assets in orbit that has never been available before. We can service and maintain assets in all of the domains. We've never been able to do it in space until now. So we need the government, we need our commercial entities all to be thinking about their basic budgets and principles of how they do things in this new way that they can now service and maintain assets in space.
ISAM is real today. It lets us make the space systems of today and tomorrow more resilient, more reliable, more robust, more flexible, more cost-effective. The activities that we're doing today are demonstrating all this is possible. Let's move beyond demonstration. Let's move to operations. Let's make this a routine part of space missions.
Let's move. Let's do it. That'll be all for us today here in the Nexus. Thanks to Joe Anderson. Thanks, Vanessa Clark. And thanks, Greg Richardson. Thanks to T-Minus as always. And thank you, the listener, for continuing to join us. We'll see you next time in the Nexus.